They whispered of a beast that never closed its eyes, a watcher at the world's forgotten edge. Old maps blistered and burned where its shadow touched, ink trembling at the margins of truth. Kings drew borders, scholars traced lines, yet none dared step beyond its breath. Tonight, we walk into that silence, where the dragon still breathes, and the edge of the map is never still. You stand before a map, old and trembling, its edges browned like parchment, left too close to a flame. The center feels safe, cities marked with towers, rivers carefully traced, kingdoms crowned in ink, but your eyes wander outward. Beyond the borders of the known world, the lines dissolve into whiteness, into waves, into creatures drawn not from memory, but from fear. Here at the edge of the map, you linger, and the sea begins to breathe. You smell the salt first, the faint sting of brine, as though the parchment itself exudes the breath of the ocean. In your ears, the whisper of wind moving across endless waters. You close your eyes, and the ship is already waiting. Wood groans beneath your feet, planks wet with morning dew. The harbor fades behind you. Lanterns dimming, bells tolling once, twice, before silence swallows the land. Sailcloth stretches overhead like the wings of a pale bird, and the ocean, vast, endless, accepts you without question. Sailors move around you quietly, as if aware that too much noise may stir what waits below. You see them carving small marks into the wood of the mast, tiny crosses, whispered initials, symbols only they can read. It is not decoration, it is protection, for every voyage is a prayer disguised as a journey. In medieval harbors, departure was always a moment of trembling. Mothers pressed charms into palms, priests sprinkled holy water across bows, children stood on the shore, wide-eyed, clutching bread baked into the shape of fish. No one admitted fear, yet every face knew the truth. The ocean was not a road. It was a mouth, and to sail upon it was to be swallowed, unless the gods themselves held you in their sight. You lean against the rail, watching the water shift from green to black. The coast dwindles, then disappears. The air sharpens, heavy with the metallic tang of salt. The horizon stretches like a blade of silver. How far does it go? How long before you fall from its edge? The maps, after all, do not say. Some end with scribbled warnings. Hic sunt dracones, here be dragons. Others bloom with painted monsters, scaled serpents, wide-fanged whales, creatures stitched together from fear and rumor. Cartographers were not only scientists of space, they were keepers of caution. The edge of the world was not blank. It was alive, and so you drift deeper. Nights on the medieval sea were long, longer than land could measure. The stars brightened overhead, clear and sharp, as if the sky itself leaned closer to watch. Constellations became maps within maps. Sailors whispered names to the stars, some drawn from scripture, some from sagas, others nameless but trusted all the same. The sea below, however, gave no such constancy. It heaved, it shifted, it cracked ships apart with hands of water, and when the moonlight struck just so, sailors swore they saw scales ripple beneath the surface, eyes vast and luminous, staring upward before fading into the depths. You breathe slowly, rocking with the ship, lulled by the rhythm of waves that seem both cradle and threat. The salt stings your lips, the wind tangles your hair. It is peaceful, and it is not, for every splash may be more than water. Every shadow may be a fin, a tail, the hint of something larger than belief allows. The chronicles tell of sailors who vanished not in storms, not in hunger, but in silence. Their ships adrift, sails torn, no crew to be found. The timbers scarred with marks no blade could make. Stories spread from port to port. A serpent circling ships, a dragon rising in smoke and foam, a creature whose breath blackened the air like burning pitch. Some claimed it was the punishment of God for venturing too far. Others swore it was Leviathan, the beast foretold in Scripture, waiting for the final days. But among sailors, the whispers were simpler. It was the dragon that never slept. Its eyes lingered at the edges of every voyage, unblinking, unseen. You taste the fear of those tales as though they were salt in the air. It does not come in sudden terror. It comes in the slow realization that the sea is endless, and you are not. The days blur. Work fills the hours. Ropes coiled, sails mended, decks scrubbed. Men sing in low voices to keep rhythm. The song's half prayer, half memory of home. At night, the voices fall silent. Every creak of wood feels louder. Every gust of wind carries shapes into the dark. You imagine it then, the dragon, not as fire and wing, not as a land-bound beast, but as vastness itself, its body the sea, its breath the mist, its scales the shifting waves, and always its eyes glowing beneath the surface, waiting, watching, knowing. The map had warned you. The ink had whispered its truth at the margins. A dragon waited unseen. And here, drifting upon endless water, you feel that warning press against your skin. It is not threat. It is not comfort. It is presence. Perhaps that is why the sea has always been both holy and cursed. A place where saints walked on waves. A place where sinners drowned. A place where dragons waited, never closing their eyes. The ship rocks softly, endlessly. A cradle of wood upon a bed of liquid night. You breathe with it. You sway with it. You drift in and out of thought as sailors before you did, watching the horizon but never reaching it. Somewhere, faintly, smoke rises, not from the ship, not from fire, but from the sea itself, curling upward like breath from a creature too vast to name. You blink, the smoke fades, or perhaps it never was, and so you stand, as countless did, at the edge of map and myth, where salt and ink and fear blur together. You listen to the ocean breathe. You listen for wings, for whispers, for scales brushing just beneath the surface. And though you cannot see it, you know it is there. The dragon, the sleepless one, its eyes forever open, forever waiting, forever watching. The ship drifts on, small against endlessness. You drift with it, and the horizon remains unbroken, silver, infinite, unfinished. You breathe one last time with the waves, slow and deep. The map closes in your hands, yet the scent of salt lingers. Beyond its borders, the dragon's shadow still waits, unblinking, and in that silence you drift onward, toward rivers, toward mist, toward another story not yet told. You stand on the deck of a ship hewn from oak, its timbers darkened by salt and storm. The air is colder here, the wind sharper. The sea itself feels older, as though every wave carries memory carved deep into its foam. Overhead, thunder mutters. Lightning flares, brief and jagged, painting the world in silver. The horizon stretches like a wound that never heals. You search it, but it never yields its truth. The sagas told of what lay beyond. They whispered of Jörmungandr, the Midgard serpent, a creature so vast it circled the earth, its own tail locked within its jaws. They said when it shifted, the seas heaved. When it breathed, storms were born, and when it rose, the end of all things would come. You feel the ship shudder beneath your feet, as if even the wood remembers the tale. The planks creak like tired bones. The mast moans in the wind, and the sailors around you lower their eyes. They do not shout to the storm. They chant to themselves, low verses pressed into the dark air, fragments of the Eddas, old prayers, names of gods whispered like anchors, Thor, Odin, Freyr, as if the sound of those names might bind the ship to the world of the living. Rain begins to fall, cold as knives. It slicks the deck, runs down your face, stings your lips with salt. Every drop feels heavy, as though the sky itself is sinking into the sea. The horizon blurs, a smear of gray upon gray, but the sailors do not look away. They keep their gaze fixed, outward, as if waiting, not for land, not for light, but for eyes. You close your own, just for a moment, and you feel it, that presence beneath the water. Not storm, not tide, but something vaster, something coiled, something watching. In Norse sagas, the sea was never empty. It was alive, restless, hungry. Fishermen told of glimpses, scales that shimmered like wet stone, coils rising and falling like mountains that shifted in the deep. The serpent's body was said to be so large that no ship could measure it. No eye could take its form in whole. To look upon it was to look upon the horizon itself. You open your eyes. The storm has thickened, the sky a sheet of iron, the waves rising higher, lifting the ship like a toy. Each crash shakes your bones, each swell threatens to devour you whole. Still, the men chant. Their voices rise and fall with the sea. They do not sing of safety. They do not plead for calm. They sing of battle, of Thor, hammer in hand, striking at the serpent, of Ragnarök, when gods and men alike would fight and fall, and the sea itself would burn. The rhythm steadies them and steadies you, for in their voices you hear not fear alone, but awe. To them, the serpent is not only threat, it is prophecy. It is the circle that binds the world, the shadow that keeps men small, the reminder that nothing is beyond ending. The ship crests a wave. For a breathless moment, the sea drops away beneath you, and then, in the trough of the wave, you glimpse it, a curve, vast and dark, rising just beneath the water. The surface breaks, foams, swirls. For the span of a heartbeat, you imagine scales glistening in the stormlight, and then it is gone. Was it wave? Was it beast? The horizon refuses to answer. The men do not speak of what you saw, but their chanting deepens. They know, or they believe, and belief is enough. The Norse understood the sea not as void, but as border. It marked the edge of Midgard, the realm of men. Beyond lay Jotunheim, land of giants, and the unknown cold. The serpent lay between, a living wall, a warning written in water. You breathe deeply, the air heavy with brine and thunder. The horizon rolls and sways, a silver thread stitched across storm-dark fabric, always out of reach, always alive. The serpent, they said, would one day let go of its tail. Then it would rise. Its coils would crack mountains. Its breath would poison skies. And Thor would face it, hammer against scale, thunder against tide. Both would fall. The world would end. But tonight is not that night. Tonight, the serpent remains unseen, save for hints, save for shadows, save for the endless silence beneath the roar. The ship rocks on. The storm softens. The thunder drifts farther, muttering into distance. The sea smooths, though the memory of its violence lingers in your bones. The sailors rest now, voices fading, their chants dissolving into weary breaths. The mast steadies, the sails fill, the wood sighs in relief, but the horizon is still there, still empty, still full. You lean against the rail, salt dries on your skin. The world is washed clean, yet the presence remains. A coil unseen, an eye unblinking, a serpent that binds the earth. You know it will not sleep, and you know you cannot prove it was ever there. The sagas left it unfinished. The horizon left it unanswered, and you drift, as countless before you drifted, caught between story and silence. You close your eyes to the horizon, letting the ship's sway cradle you. Beneath the calm, you still feel the coil, vast and patient. The serpent never reveals itself fully, and perhaps that is its power. For in the spaces it leaves empty, stories are born, and in that silence the sea carries you farther, toward deserts, toward sands, toward another whisper waiting beyond the waves. The sea dissolves behind you. Salt fades from your lips. The horizon no longer ripples with water, but shimmers with heat. You find yourself standing at the threshold of the desert, an ocean of sand, endless, unbroken, stretching farther than sight allows. The dunes rise and fall like waves made of stone and ash, and the sun, a white flame above, presses its weight upon you until even your shadow trembles. The air burns. It scrapes the inside of your throat. Grains of sand slip beneath your robe, sting against your skin, grind between your teeth like glass. The desert is not quiet. It hisses with wind, whispers with shifting dunes, sighs with the faint cries of unseen creatures. A caravan waits. Camels kneel in the heat, their eyes half closed, their breath heavy. The travelers adjust their robes, their faces veiled against the furnace of the day. Water skins clink softly, their weight more precious than gold. Each man carries a verse, a prayer, a protection whispered beneath his breath. For to cross the desert is not to walk across earth. It is to walk across memory, across myth. Every step is a bargain with forces unseen. They spoke of what lay beyond the dunes. Beasts without form, their bodies born of flame, eyes glowing in the night, like embers scattered by a careless hand. Some called them jinn, spirits of fire and smoke, older than mankind, watchers of the desert's vast silence. Others spoke of monstrous serpents, scales burning hot to the touch, their coils buried beneath centuries of shifting sand. Whichever tale you choose, the truth is the same. Something dwells here, and it does not welcome trespass. You move with the caravan as the day stretches into fire. The sun pounds upon your back. Your skin dries, lips cracking, sweat evaporating before it can fall. The camels groan, their wide feet pressing deep into the dunes. Each step, a slow surrender. The horizon wavers, a trembling mirage of silver and blue that promises water, promises shade, promises lies. But still you walk, because to stop is to vanish. At dusk, the desert softens. The sky bleeds orange into purple. The heat drifts upward like smoke. The stars pierce through the fading light, sharp and cold, as though the heavens themselves have drawn nearer to watch. The caravan halts. A circle forms. Fires are lit, though the flames burn low, for wood is scarce and precious. The travelers sit close, shadows swaying against the sand. Voices rise, not loud, but steady. Verses, protective words woven into rhythm, into song. Half prayer, half memory. Their cadence flows like water poured over stone. The names of God ripple through the night, carried upward into the stars. You listen, and you feel the desert listening too. The sand stills. The wind holds its breath, and something in the distance shifts. They say the dunes move on their own, not by wind, not by time, but by something that stirs beneath, reshaping the land in silence. A footprint disappears, a path closes, a ruin swallows whole. The desert writes nothing down. It keeps what it takes. You lie back, the sand cool now beneath your hands. The stars dazzle above, endless, infinite. The caravan sleeps in fragments. Men curled against camels, children beneath thin blankets, guards pacing with blades that glint softly in the starlight. The verses linger even in silence, as if the air itself hums with them. And then you see it, a flicker at the edge of the dunes. Not fire, not torch, not star, but a glow, low and shifting, like coal hidden beneath ash. You blink, and it is gone. Or perhaps it moved. The sand shifts, sighs, smooths itself as if no footprint had ever pressed there. The stories return to you in fragments. Jinn walking in human form, faces veiled, voices soft, luring wanderers away from their path. Serpents breathing flame beneath the ground, their coils larger than mountains. Ghost caravans that appear on the horizon, their bells ringing in the wind, leading travelers into endless wandering until thirst silences them forever and always. The desert swallows. It does not return. The dawn comes pale and gold, light spilling over the dunes like molten glass. The fires are gone, leaving only ash. The caravan moves again, slower now, every step a labor. You breathe heat once more, your skin tight and dry, your mind softening in the weight of endless horizon. By midday, the air ripples with mirages. Shadows appear, vanish. You see water that does not exist, trees that fade as you near them, cities of light that vanish into dust. And sometimes, just beyond the curve of a dune, you think you glimpse a figure. Tall, silent, watching. By the time you blink, it is gone. The men say nothing. They keep their verses close. Their lips move constantly, barely audible, like the sound of wind brushing across stone. Because silence is dangerous here. Silence invites, silence listens. The day burns into night again, and the stars return sharper than before. You lie once more upon the sand, the sky infinite above, and you wonder how many have looked at these same constellations. Traders, wanderers, prophets, thieves, and how many never rose again from the dunes that covered them. The desert does not keep names. It does not remember in words. It remembers in bones, in ruins swallowed whole, in stories whispered, never written, carried mouth to ear like fragile fire. And so you drift, half in waking, half in dream. The verses hum like distant water. The sand cools beneath your skin, and you feel, not see, the presence moving just beyond sight. A coil beneath the dune, a shadow at the edge of starlight, a whisper in a language older than men. It does not harm you. It does not welcome you. It waits, and when your eyes close, you know only this. The desert keeps its secrets, the ash of its suns, the silence of its stars, the creatures that watch and never leave their mark in ink. Only in fear, only in memory, only in whispers that travel with the caravans, fading like footprints erased by wind. The dunes rise and fall, endless waves of silence. You hear the faintest bell, a caravan drifting where no path remains. The sands close over it, patient, eternal. And as the stars burn brighter, you drift with them, toward parchment, toward ink, toward the maps where beasts still wait at the margins. The desert drifts away, the stars fade, and in their place, candlelight flickers. You find yourself in a narrow chamber. Stone walls press close. The air is thick with the scent of ink, of smoke, of wax melted down to stubs. Here the world is redrawn, not in sand or wave, but in lines of black and crimson. A cartographer bends over a vast sheet of parchment. His fingers are stained with ink, nails cracked, skin dry from years of labor. Each breath fogs in the cool of the chamber, yet sweat beads on his brow. The work is holy. The work is dangerous. The quill hovers, then scratches forward. The line curves like a coastline, jagged as memory, fragile as rumor. Every mark is more than geography. It is an act of faith. The center of the map feels safe. Cities, towers, rivers, known, walked, measured. But as the quill moves outward, the lines begin to blur. Rumor replaces certainty. Whispers replace measurements. And at the very edge, where no sailor has returned with truth, the ink blossoms into shapes of beasts, a scaled serpent coiling around an island never proven to exist. A whale, jaws wide enough to swallow ships whole. Dragons, wings outstretched, smoke curling from their nostrils. Each one a guardian, a warning, a reminder that the world beyond is not empty but alive. The wax candle sputters. Its flame trembles, spilling light across the parchment. The cartographer pauses, staring at his own work as though it were staring back. Does he believe these creatures, or does he simply know that men need them? To give shape to the endless, to place fear where none can be measured. The ink dries slowly. It smells sharp, metallic, bitter in your throat. The parchment crinkles, animal skin stretched, scraped, pressed flat. Every stroke of the quill whispers like a sigh, like a prayer. Maps were never only tools. They were stories, folded into lines, pressed into corners. A sailor unfolded one and saw not distance but destiny. A king unrolled one and saw not borders but power. A pilgrim traced a finger across one and felt the breath of danger waiting just beyond the edge. And so, the beasts endured. They were painted not only from fear but from wonder. To imagine a land without them was to imagine silence where mystery belonged. You lean closer. The creatures shimmer in the flickering light, their ink almost alive. The serpent's eye glints gold. The dragon's wing seems to ripple as though stretched by unseen wind. For in the mind, in the dream, these are not drawings. They are presences. Outside the chamber, bells toll faintly. A city breathes. Merchants trade. Children laugh. Priests chant in stone cathedrals. But here, within the circle of parchment, the world is larger, stranger, darker, and the cartographer's hand does not rest. He writes in Latin, Hic sunt dracones. Here be dragons, not a claim, not a certainty, but a boundary, where ink meets abyss. You feel the weight of those words, how they carried across centuries, warning sailors, igniting imaginations. A phrase meant to close doors, yet opened countless more. Because what is a dragon if not the embodiment of fear we cannot name? What is a serpent if not the shadow of seas we cannot measure? What is a map without its mysteries? The chamber darkens as the candle shrinks lower. Shadows spread across the walls, curling like beasts themselves. The cartographer dips his quill again, his hand steady, though his breath quickens. The edge must be filled. The blank space cannot remain, for blankness is more terrifying than monsters. Monsters give form. Monsters give meaning. Monsters, at least, can be imagined. Your gaze drifts to a corner of the map. A coastline, jagged and strange. An island drawn with no name, circled by sea monsters with gaping maws. You wonder who told the story. A sailor returned half-mad. A merchant who dreamed it on a fevered night. Or perhaps no one at all. Perhaps the cartographer himself, weary and wild-eyed, conjured it to keep the void at bay. The parchment rustles. The beasts seem to move with it. Their bodies curl, their jaws widen, their eyes glimmer in the wavering light. And you realize that the map is not still. It breathes, because every map is alive. It carries the fears, hopes, and faith of those who traced it. It binds myth and memory, into one fragile surface, and when unfolded, it whispers, not only of where you may go, but of what may find you. The candle sputters once more. Smoke coils upward. The cartographer leans back, exhausted, his eyes half closed. The ink glistens wet, black as midnight, shimmering like water under moonlight. He does not smile. He does not sigh. He simply waits, staring at the beasts he has drawn, as though waiting for them to step free of the parchment. And perhaps, in some way, they already have, for every sailor who set forth carried these creatures in his mind. Every prayer whispered on deck echoed the inked warnings. Every horizon shimmered with dragons unseen, with serpents beneath, with whales waiting. The beasts were no longer confined to parchment. They swam, they flew, they breathed within imagination itself. The candle dies. Darkness presses in, warm and deep. The map lies across the table, edges curling, beasts frozen yet restless. You close your eyes, and you still see them. Not ink, not paper, but wings against the sky, scales beneath the tide, fire curling in the air, and the words linger. Here be dragons, not an end, never an end, always a beginning. The parchment curls softly, as if exhaling. Ink gleams like embers in the dark, whispering of shores never touched. The beasts wait at the margins, silent yet alive, and as you drift from candlelight into mist, you follow the ink's breath, toward rivers, toward whispers, toward the next hidden story. The sea fades, the parchment folds itself away, and in its place you hear water moving, slow, steady, endless. A river, hidden in mist. The air is cool against your skin. It smells of damp earth, of reeds bending, of lotus blossoms releasing their faint sweetness. Mist coils low across the water's surface, rising in swirls that never settle. Every breath feels ancient, as though it has drifted down the river for centuries before finding you here. You stand upon soft banks where fishermen have knelt for generations. Their nets lie coiled like sleeping serpents. Their boats creak with age, patched and mended, carrying not only wood and rope, but also memory. For in this land, rivers are never only water. They are lifelines, veins of the earth, moving with quiet power. And in their depths, something older stirs. Chinese chronicles written in brushstrokes fine as hair speak of dragons dwelling in the waterways, not monsters of destruction, but guardians, beings of rain, fertility, balance. Their coils wound through clouds, their breath became storms, their scales shimmered like jade, like pearl, like moonlight fractured across the current. The chronicles never speak with certainty. Some tell of a dragon so vast it curled beneath the yellow river, its body stretching from bank to bank. Others whisper of smaller spirits, river dragons no larger than a horse, glimpsed only when mist rose and lanterns dimmed. All agreed on one truth: water was alive. It listened. It watched. You hear fishermen chanting. Their voices are low, carried with the rhythm of oars dipping into water. Verses of protection, handed down like heirlooms. Not loud enough to command, not fearful enough to plead. Just steady, respectful, as one greets an elder whose power is known but never named. The chant drifts across the water, mingling with the sound of ripples. You feel it vibrating faintly in your chest, a hum older than language. Lanterns sway at the bow of each boat. Their light glows gold through the fog, a fragile warmth against the endless gray. Every flicker seems to brush against unseen shapes, moving beneath the surface. A coil, a ripple, the suggestion of a shadow, vast and fluid. No fisherman dares throw his net without first bowing to the water. A bowl of rice, a cup of wine, a handful of lotus petals. Small offerings scattered into the current, not to bribe, not to bargain, but to remind the river. We are guests, and we remember. You lean closer, watching the petals drift. They swirl once, twice, then vanish beneath the mist, and for a moment, the water answers, a faint ripple moving against the current, too steady to be wind, too deep to be fish, a presence beneath, brushing gently against the world above. The chronicles spoke of these moments. Emperors ordered sacrifices at riverbanks during drought, hoping the dragon would rise, releasing rain from its coils. Villagers gathered at temples carved with dragon motifs, praying for protection against floods. In the Forbidden City itself, carved dragons coiled along the roof tiles, each one a silent reminder that power flowed not only from men but from rivers, clouds, and unseen breath. You see them now, not the statues, but the living memory, mist curling upward into shapes that almost resemble horns, water swirling into a spiral that looks like scales glinting just beneath the surface. Every sound, every movement, a suggestion, never proof. For proof would end the dream, and here, in the river's quiet, the dream is everything. The fishermen cast their nets at last. The cords unfurl in arcs, soft as wings folding through the air. They fall upon the water with a hush, sinking, waiting. No splash dares to rise, only ripples, only silence. You imagine the dragon watching, eyes vast and unblinking, set deep in the current. Not hostile, not kind, simply aware. Legends say river dragons hear everything. Every footstep on a bridge, every whisper of a fisherman's prayer, every drop of rain that dares to touch the surface. And they remember. Long after men forget, the river remembers. The mist thickens. It curls around your face, cool and damp, as though the river itself is drawing near. Somewhere within you think you hear the faint sound of scales brushing stone. Not loud, not threatening, simply present. The fishermen draw their nets back. Fish gleam silver, thrashing alive. The catch is generous. There are no words of thanks, only silence. For gratitude, like fear, is folded into ritual. It does not need to be spoken. The lanterns swing gently. Their reflections scatter into the water, breaking upon unseen ripples. You watch as one reflection bends, distorts, elongates into a shape too long, too sinuous to belong to the wooden boat above. A flicker of jade green, then gone. Perhaps it was nothing. Perhaps it was everything. Above you, reeds whisper in the breeze. Lotus flowers open their pale faces to the moon, which hides and reveals itself through drifting clouds. The entire world seems hushed, as though listening to the river breathe. And you realize, this is why the myths endured. Because water itself asks for reverence. Because fog itself carries whispers. Because every ripple could be only water, or it could be the dragon's breath. Your body softens with the rhythm. In, out, ripples, mist, lanterns swaying, prayers rising like smoke. The chronicles never end. Each dynasty wrote of the dragon anew, painting it upon scrolls, carving it into stone, folding it into poems. Dynasties crumbled, emperors fell, palaces burned, but the rivers flowed on, and the dragon endured in mist, in ink, in memory. The fishermen drift farther downstream, their lanterns growing dim. The mist thickens until only the sound of water remains. You are left alone on the bank, the reeds brushing softly against your arm. Somewhere in the fog, something shifts. A slow ripple, a coil turning, the faint echo of a sigh, too vast to belong to human lungs. You do not move. You do not speak. You simply listen, and in that silence, you understand what the fishermen have always known. The river is never empty. The water is never alone. It carries something unending, something watching, something that has guarded its course since the first lotus bloomed and will remain long after the last. The mist folds around you, soft as silk, cool as breath. A lantern flickers, then disappears, swallowed by fog. The river whispers onward, carrying you with it, into dreams where scales shimmer and prayers drift. And just beyond the bend, in currents you cannot yet see, another story waits. You hear the sea before you see it, a low, endless roar, a heartbeat made of waves. The northern coast stretches before you, jagged and raw. Black cliffs rise like broken teeth against the horizon, their edges sharpened by centuries of salt and wind. The air carries the sting of brine, cold and bitter on your lips. Every gust lashes at your face with sea spray, as though the ocean itself resists your presence. Here, the Celts lived on the edge of the known world. Stone circles crowned the cliffs, their silhouettes sharp against gray skies. Villages huddled close to the land, thatched roofs bending beneath the weight of storms. And always, the sea stretched outward, vast, hungry, unknowable. Bards sang of it, of beasts that dwelled just beyond sight, creatures whose forms shifted with the waves. Some told of long-necked serpents coiling among the foam, eyes glinting in lightning's brief flash. Others whispered of horse-shaped spirits, kelpies rising from the depths to lure the unwary into drowning embraces. And still more spoke of giants, their footsteps shaking the cliffs, their voices hidden in the crash of surf. The myths were not warnings alone. They were songs of reverence, of survival, for to live here was to live with the sea's indifference. You walk closer to the cliff's edge. The stones beneath your feet are slick with moss, ancient with memory. Carved into their surfaces are spirals, circles, and protective marks. Symbols cut by hands long gone, lines meant not to banish the sea, but to keep its gaze at bay. The people believed the ocean had eyes, and that sometimes it looked back. A storm gathers. Clouds bruise the horizon, heavy and low. The sky darkens until sea and air blend into one restless shadow. Winds howl, tearing at cloaks, at roofs, at prayers. And yet, the fishermen must go. You see them in your mind's eye. Small boats lowered into churning waters, men clutching oars and charms carved of bone. A whispered blessing, a song carried on the gale. They row into the teeth of waves, not in defiance, but in fragile trust. If the sea allowed, they would return. If not, their names would become part of the bard's songs, etched into memory like spirals on stone. Salt stings your face. Rain lashes your shoulders. The storm has arrived. Lightning splits the sky, searing white across the dark. For a moment, the cliffs glow like fire. And in that light, you think you see movement. Something vast, rising just beyond the surf. Not rock, not wave. A curve too smooth, too alive. It vanishes before thunder follows, leaving only mist and spray in its place. The bards told of such sightings, of shapes glimpsed in storms, when sea and sky blurred, when eyes were half blind from rain. They sang of nameless beasts, not to define them, but to honor their mystery. What was unseen could not be controlled. What was unnamed could not be slain. The storm deepens. The wind screams through gaps in the cliff, a voice like a horn. You feel it rattle your bones, shaking loose fear and awe in equal measure. The ground trembles faintly beneath your feet. Not earthquake, not thunder, but something heavier, older, stirring within the sea itself. Communities clung to ritual here. When storms grew too violent, Fires were lit on the cliffs, flames bending sideways in the wind. Offerings of bread and milk were cast into the surf, gifts for the hungry mouths below. Sometimes animals were sacrificed, their cries swallowed by the storm before silence could fall. Not cruelty, but survival. Not certainty, but hope. And always, the sea gave no answer. You walk along the cliff edge. Ruins of stone towers mark the land, places where druids once raised their voices against the wind. Their chants mingled with the sea's roar, threads of human sound woven into the vastness of tide and storm. No words survive, only rhythm, only echoes. Another wave crashes, sending spray so high it dampens your face though you stand far above the surf. The air tastes metallic, alive. Your skin prickles, as though unseen eyes trace your every step. A memory drifts back, carried in bardic song. A fisherman once swore he saw eyes beneath the waves, 2 lanterns glowing green in the storm. He returned pale, trembling, unwilling to set sail again. The bards did not laugh. They sang his story, weaving it into the long chain of voices. For here, belief was not proof, it was survival. You look again toward the horizon. The storm thins just enough for a fragment of moonlight to pierce through, laying silver across the sea. The surface shimmers. For a heartbeat, it seems to move with intention. A slow rise, a long curve, like the back of something immense passing silently beneath. Then it is gone, and only the restless tide remains. Salt gathers on your lips. The wind pulls at your hair. The cliff is slick beneath your hands as you steady yourself. You feel the carvings cut deep into stone. Spirals, circles, wards. Fingertips press against grooves left by ancestors who feared the same silence, the same storms, the same watching sea. You realize then, this silence was the answer. Not in words, not in proof, but in endless, unbroken indifference. The Celts lived with this truth, that life on the edge meant always listening, always watching, always carving prayers into stone, while storms erased voices from the air. That some beasts never needed to show themselves, because fear and reverence were enough to keep them alive in memory. The storm eases, its fury spent. Rain thins to mist, waves subside, though the sea never truly rests. You breathe deeply, filling your lungs with salt, with silence, with centuries. Far below, the tide pulls back, exposing black rock, wet and gleaming. For a moment, the pattern of foam seems deliberate, spirals upon stone, eyes staring upward. But the next wave erases them, and the sea swallows its own secrets once more. The cliffs darken as clouds drift westward. Symbols remain etched in the stone, glowing faint with rain. The sea breathes heavy against the rocks, whispering in tides that never rest. And as you step away, mist follows, carrying you toward the next unseen shore. The grass moves like an ocean, endless, golden, and unbroken, a sea of stalks bending beneath the wind, carrying whispers that never end. You stand upon the step where land stretches beyond sight. No mountains, no forests, only horizons, and in those horizons, fire waits. The air is sharp with the scent of smoke. Not wood smoke, not hearth smoke, but grass burning in long, low waves. Flames crawl across the plains, red tongues licking the night sky, driven by wind swift as a horse's gallop. The nomads watch these fires from a distance, eyes narrowed, voices hushed. For in the smoke, they believe, something greater stirs. Here, in this vastness, life belongs to movement. Herds thunder across the plains. Horses snort clouds into the cold air. Families shift their camps with the seasons, tents folding and unfolding like wings. Everywhere, the drumbeat of hooves. Steady, relentless, like the heart of the earth itself. But when fire comes, hooves fall silent, and all eyes turn to the horizon. Legends speak of dragons born of flame, their bodies coiled in smoke, their wings stretched wider than the sky. The people call them Zamaj in some tongues, Luong in others, spirits of fire that rise from burning grasslands. Some believe the dragons are omens, guardians sent by the sky gods to cleanse the land. Others whisper that they are punishment, devourers who feast on those who forget respect. You hear the shamans now. Drums echo into the night, deep and low, their rhythm meant to balance the chaos of fire. Each strike falls like a heartbeat, steady, grounding. They chant with voices rough as gravel, calling not to control, but to harmonize, to remind the flames, and whatever hides within them, that the people remember. The stars burn above, brilliant and countless. The steppe sky holds no barriers, no shelter, only infinity. And in that infinity, constellations dance. The dragon wins among them, its body a chain of stars stretching from horizon to horizon. Nomads point with calloused fingers, tracing its curve, whispering stories as children press against their sides. Once, the dragon descended, they say. Its breath set the grass aflame, its wings blotted the moon. But it did not destroy, it tested. It asked, "Do you still remember the old ways?" And the people remembered, through offerings of milk spilled upon the ground, through the burial of sacred stones at the camp's edge, through the rhythm of drums that never ceased, even when storms tore the sky apart. The steppe whispers around you. Wind rushes low through the grass, bending it in rippling waves. It sounds like breath, like something vast inhaling, exhaling, just beyond reach. Horses stamp nervously, ears flicking toward the horizon where fire glows faint and red. You feel the heat, even at this distance, a pulse moving through the land. Every spark seems alive, twisting upward, joining the smoke that coils into the stars, and within that smoke, shapes form, curves, arcs, the brief impression of wings unfolding, then vanishing. The nomads ride closer. Their horses move in silence, hooves muffled by earth, hardened with ash. They wear talismans of bone and bronze, tied with red cords that flutter in the night wind. Every motion is deliberate, every breath is prayer. You watch as one elder dismounts, pressing his palms into the soil. His lips move silently. The ground is warm beneath his touch, alive, trembling faintly with the fire's distant roar. When he rises, his face is solemn, as though the earth itself had spoken in words only he could hear. The drums continue, low, steady, carrying across the plain like thunder rolling far away. Stories drift like smoke. Some say the dragons of fire live within the steppe itself, sleeping beneath roots until lightning wakes them. Others believe they fall from the heavens, born from sparks shed by the sun as it travels across the sky. Whatever their origin, they are never seen in full, only glimpsed in fragments, a coil of smoke, a shadow between flames, an outline traced in stars. Your eyes grow heavy, lulled by rhythm, by firelight. The horizon sways in the heat, bending shapes into illusions. The grass seems to shimmer with scales. The stars seem to pulse with breath. The earth itself feels alive beneath your feet, humming, whispering, and then, in the space between one heartbeat and the next, silence falls. The fire still burns. The stars still blaze, but the drums stop. In that stillness, you hear it, a sound deeper than thunder, lower than wind. a rumble that moves through bone and soil alike. The horses rear, eyes wide, nostrils flaring. The nomads bow their heads. No one speaks. The sound fades. The night resumes. The drums begin again, steady, calming. The horizon glows softer, the fire sinking back into embers. And yet the presence remains, lingering, unseen but undeniable. You breathe in smoke. It tastes of grass, of ash, of iron. It fills your chest, heavy and warm, as though part of the dragon itself now rests within you. The nomads will move on. They always do. Tomorrow the tents will fold. The herds will thunder across new plains. The fire will leave only black scars behind. But the memory will remain. The dragon will remain. For the steppe whispers always. In wind, in flame, in stars, in wings unseen, the drums echo faintly as the horizon darkens. Smoke coils upward, fading into constellations. The steppe exhales, long and low, carrying secrets in its breath. And far ahead, beyond tomorrow's campfires, another shadow waits at the edge of the map. The ocean begins where the world stops, or so the old maps claimed. Ink bled at the edges, as though the parchment itself refused to hold the unknown. Here, at the edge of certainty, words gave way to drawings. Dragons, serpents, monsters with eyes unblinking and wings stretched wide. They were not decoration. They were warnings. Here be dragons. Sailors spoke those words with a shiver, not as metaphor, not as myth, but as truth. The sea beyond the known world held no stars. That was the first omen. Night descended heavy, thick, swallowing light. Constellations that guided men across coasts and harbors dissolved into blankness. The compass needle wavered, uncertain, and silence spread across the waves. You can hear that silence now. It is not empty. It is not gentle. It presses against your chest, filling the lungs with dread. Even the wind grows hesitant, tugging at sails as though unsure of its own direction. Explorers painted symbols on their sails, crosses, runes, circles woven of rope and pitch, not for decoration, but for protection. For who could face the end of the world without a prayer stitched into cloth? They carved charms into the wooden masts, offered wine to the waves, dropped coins into the water so the sea might spare them. Still the ocean took, ships vanished, logbooks ended mid-sentence, maps returned without the men who had drawn them. Those who survived spoke in fragments, voices trembling. They told of horizons that bent and folded, of waters that climbed like walls, of shadows taller than masts, wings spreading wider than the moon, and always, always, of eyes that glowed beneath the waves, eyes that blinked open when sails reached the edge of charted waters, eyes that watched without moving, patient as stone. The guardians of the unnamed. Some said they were dragons set by the gods, protectors of creation's boundary, not beasts of chaos, but keepers of order, holding men back from trespassing into places not meant for them. Others whispered they were remnants, ancient titans left over from a time before land and sky parted, still circling the void. The truth never returned intact. Each voyage fractured certainty further. For every sailor who swore they saw wings break the horizon, another insisted it was only a trick of storms. For every chart scribbled with dragon scales, another was blank, ink dissolved in seawater. And yet, the fear endured, the smell of salt, the groan of timber, the roll of waves too vast to measure. Each sensation whispered the same truth. Something waited beyond. Your hand grips the rail of the ship, knuckles pale. The sea stretches outward, endless, smooth as glass. The stars have already vanished. Only blackness above. No constellations to guide, No North Star to follow, only silence. And then from deep below comes the sound. Not thunder, not wave. A low, resonant hum, like the ocean itself exhaling. It vibrates through the hull, through your ribs, through the marrow of bone. The men murmur prayers. Some kiss talismans strung around their necks. One drops to his knees, pressing his forehead against the wood as though begging the ship itself for mercy. The hum grows louder, and in the water, light begins to stir. First faint, a glow like moonlight bent and broken beneath the surface. Then brighter, circles of fire, widening, unblinking, eyes one pair. Then another, then dozens, surrounding the ship, glowing through the black. They do not move, they only watch. The silence is unbearable. The ocean holds its breath. The men clutch ropes and rails, afraid even to whisper. And in that stillness, you understand. The maps were not wrong. The dragons were not invention. They were truth inked into parchment, the only way men could dare. The guardians stand where certainty ends. Not to kill, not to destroy, but to remind the world has edges, and those edges are not meant for trespass. The glow fades, the hum dissolves, the eyes close, sinking back into darkness. The silence remains, heavier than before. When the ship turns back toward familiar stars, the men do not speak. They cannot, for what words could hold what they have seen? What language could survive the gaze of the unnamed? And so, the voyages return in fragments. A torn sail bearing a sigil of protection, a logbook ending mid-word, a man who will no longer look at the sea. No voyage returns with certainty intact. Only the whisper of guardians, only the silence of oceans without stars, only the memory of eyes that watched and chose to let them leave. The parchment edges still bleed with inked warnings. Here be dragons, the cartographers wrote, and though explorers scoffed, setting sail with pride, every return carried the same shadow. At the edge of the map, something waits, something that does not need to move to terrify. The guardians of the unnamed. They said the dragon never closed its eyes, not once, not even when the world itself slept. Through storms and kingdoms, through collapse and coronation, it watched. Through prayers whispered into fire and oceans spilling across their borders, it watched. The flame did not burn out. The flame did not blink. You imagine that gaze now, heavy and endless. It does not glare. It does not soften. It simply is an ember in the corner of vision, glowing through centuries. Ash drifts on the air, soft, silent. It gathers in folds of cloth, on the edges of shields, across the pages of scripture. Every spark that fell, every coal that glowed, was said to echo the sleepless flame. Kings built walls of prayer. Great towers rose with spires tipped in gold, meant to pierce the gaze. Cathedrals hummed with incense, smoke curling upward like hands reaching toward the unseen. Priests chanted into the silence, their words trembling between hope and fear. But no hymn was loud enough. The eyes did not close. Sailors on distant seas painted fire upon their sails, red streaks against white cloth. They believed the imitation might appease what watched, that the sleepless flame would see kinship and let them pass. And still, storms tore wood to splinters. Still, masts cracked in two. Still, the silence pressed on. You walk with those sailors now, barefoot upon a deck damp with salt. The stars flicker overhead, but they do not guide. Every constellation feels fragile, unsteady, as though the true light is not above, but far out, across the horizon. A steady red glow, pulsing from the sea itself. The men whisper, they have seen it too. A flame that never moves closer, never fades, never flickers. It only watches, In the deserts, travelers spoke the same way. They crossed dunes under suns that bled the skin. At night they built fires in circles, small shields against the dark. Yet beyond their ring of light, they swore another flame glowed. Distant, untouchable, mirrored against the dunes. When they walked toward it, it withdrew. When they turned away, it followed. A flame that never slept. A flame that never wavered. The sleepless flame. Shamans told of it in hushed tones, tapping drums that echoed like heartbeats. They said the flame was not creature, but memory. The breath of the first fire that split night from day. A watcher set at the beginning, too vast to extinguish, too eternal to rest. Others disagreed. They said it was no memory, but a presence, still alive, older than the stars above, older than the seas that shift and swallow. A dragon vast enough that even its eye burned like a furnace across horizons. Neither story comforted. Both stories lingered. Ash fell even where no fire had been lit. The smell of smoke clung to robes. The sound of crackling flame haunted silence. Every prayer was a wall, but walls crumble. And still, the eyes remained open. You can feel the warmth now. It does not scorch. It does not destroy. It hovers, steady, like a hearth too immense to approach. Its glow settles on your skin, not painful but insistent. A warmth that will not let you forget it is there. And you realize something. This is not heat as the body knows it. This is the heat of presence, the kind that enters your thoughts and lingers in your marrow. A reminder that you are seen, and seen still, and seen always. The dragon never closed its eyes, and so the world lived with its gaze. Generations passed. Rulers rose and fell. Empires folded into dust. But the flame remained, always there at the edge of stories, the edge of sleep, the edge of maps. A red ember in the dark. Men tried to cage it with names. They called it guardian. They called it curse. They called it punishment. They called it blessing. But the flame belonged to none of them. It watched with patience beyond any word, beyond any ritual, beyond any wall of prayer. Even now you feel its rhythm. Each breath you take glows with a faint ember. Each beat of your heart echoes like a spark. The fire has always been near, woven into your veins, lingering in your dreams. The dragon has always watched. The ash drifts. The embers hum. The silence gathers, and in that silence, something vast endures. No one can say whether the eyes burn with judgment, or mercy, or something stranger still. No one can say if they search, or simply remain. But one truth has followed every tongue, every culture, every prayer. The flame never sleeps. The flame never closes. The flame is always watching, and tonight, you feel it too. Ash continues to drift across the night. It settles on towers, on sails, on desert stones. No prayer erases it. No empire outlives it. Somewhere, a glow endures, the sleepless flame, and as you close your own eyes, you know that something else never will.